I guess let's just talk. And I know we hit on Rocket Lab every week because you're selling every week. It crossed $150 a share. I remember, feels like, I don't know, 2 weeks ago when it was crossing $100 a share. It probably wasn't 2 weeks
Yeah.
ago, but it feels that way. And that was crazy.
It may have been less than 2 weeks ago. I mean,
Yeah.
it's been insane.
Is Rocket Lab just solely moving up in because of the excitement of the SpaceX IPO, or is
It's
there
quite
any other
possible.
reason?
Well, at 120 times revenues, this is sort of like where it gets into dangerous and high risk territory, right? Like I used to make fun of Palantir because Palantir was being valued at over 100 times revenues. Well, guess what? It's no longer being valued at over 100 times revenues. Palantir is down something like 40% from its highs, despite crushing its most recent quarter, right? And it's still like not a cheap stock, right? And this is sort of like what we're looking at with Rocket Lab is that it's not a cheap stock anymore, and a lot of its potential and continued growth for now you have to keep going out further and further out in order to justify its current valuation, and and that just makes it really high risk. So with it still being, like, or it was about 20% of my portfolio, and it, even as I kept selling because it would make new highs, it would remain at 20% of my portfolio. Today, I think as of close, it's like around 16% of my portfolio, and it's still pretty large. Like that's a pretty high risk holding still. So
Yeah.
I might reduce even more, but again, I still love this company. It's not that the company is not great, but at 120 times sales, you gotta weigh that in as to what's the risk reward factor. Whereas Meta for me seems like a much better risk reward. Much lower
Right.
risk and potential high reward if the market continues to crush it and everything goes up. Meta should go up once it proves to the naysayers that, hey, it's a cash generating machine.
So SpaceX last week released their financials,
Mm.
as they're about to IPO. Um, and you did a great breakdown of it on X. But before we get to that, I still want to talk about Rocket Lab a little bit. My concern is it's very clear SpaceX is going to be extremely overvalued when it IPOs. And I don't know if it's going to happen in the short term, medium term, long term. Eventually, SpaceX will correct to a certain extent to be more in line with its results. I'm not saying it's going to be in line with its results, but it's eventually it has to, as all things kind of do, correct up or down. My concern with Rocket Lab is when SpaceX decides to correct, it'll bring Rocket Lab back down with it.
It might, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
first of all, that's not a statement of fact. Like, it doesn't have to correct, right? Like Tesla, like a lot of people have been waiting, for years for Tesla to correct, and it hasn't corrected, despite the fact that Tesla's revenues are down year over year for the past couple of years, and Optimus keeps getting pushed out further and further, and robotaxis keeps getting pushed out further and further, and yet Tesla is still a $1.5 trillion company. So there. Technically, SpaceX doesn't have to correct, right? But when I saw SpaceX's filings and actually saw the revenue and the lack of revenue growth, because in all of 2025, SpaceX had grown at just 33%, which is basically on par with like how fast Meta is growing today, right? But making it even worse is that in the first quarter of this year, they only grew at 15%. So the growth rate has even slowed down for SpaceX. So that was a major surprise. The collection of all of the revenues combined was only 18 billion. I thought that they had significantly higher revenue than 18 billion. In fact, I thought just the SpaceX and the launch business and the satellite business, meaning Starlink, I thought those two alone were in the 20s. There was sort of like these rumors that they're in the $25 billion revenue run rate. But it turns out that those two businesses combined with the SpaceX AI business, which is only $3 billion, all of it combined is only 18. And then the SpaceX AI business, or that's the combination of Twitter, XAI, Grok, all of that combined is only a $3 billion business. When Elon bought Twitter, Twitter was a $5 billion business. So in the past 3 years since he's bought that company and added the AI capabilities and Grok and the sales of these additional subscriptions, he's basically managed to reduce Twitter's revenue by 40% over that time period. So by all measures, when you look at this sort of like SpaceX financials, this is a massive disaster, like in my opinion, right? Like not financial advice, obviously, but this is a massive, massive disaster. Like no one thought that they were this bad. Now, there's one saving grace, and that is Anthropic, the company that Elon Musk has been making fun of for the past, year, has come out as their saving grace and made a deal with XAI to rent their unused data center because they don't need it. Nobody's using their product for $1.25 billion per month of revenue for SpaceX. And if you annualize that, that's like roughly $15 billion annualized revenue. So this one Anthropic deal is worth almost as much as all of SpaceX, XAI, Twitter, Grok, launch business, Starlink combined. This one contract, right? And that is their saving grace. I could have never predicted that that SpaceX would actually be saved by Anthropic, the company that Elon loved to call misanthropic. So it's just hilarious. One caveat here is that Anthropic or SpaceX can cancel the contract with 90 days notice. So, they might have the last laugh after all if they choose to mess with Elon.
That'd be Shakespearean.
It's just yeah. And then you'll see the name calling really go wild by Elon if they do that, right? I mean, I would not want to touch SpaceX with a 10-foot pole at this price point. It's just mind-boggling to me. The company is doing great stuff, by the way. And it's just, and its mission, I love like so much of what it's doing, but revenues, financials just don't add up. So it's very frustrating to look at the numbers.